compared with other countries as a better country to live. During, for example, when we speak about Sri Lanka, before neoliberalism, that spread through globalization in the 90s, after the fall of in the post-Cold War period, when neo-imperialism started, further offensive, intensified offensive through the establishment of WTO, etc. Neoliberalism got a further boost. And before that, Sri Lanka was held as a model for Afro-Asian Latin American nations because during that period of welfare capitalism, that Keynesian welfare capitalism, during that period, Sri Lanka was a model for our country. But what has happened today, we know. Sri Lanka is one of the most horrific situation is in Sri Lanka today. And we know from the 20th this century, that is in the 21st century, during the first decade of the 20th century, Sri Lankan regime was totally engaged in solving the Tamil question. And we know in 2009 that the biggest massacre in history, more than 1 lakh Tamil people were massacred with the backing of the Sinhala chauvinism, Sinhala majority, the ruling regime. At that time also Rajapaksa was ruling. So they eliminated the Tamil through one of the most bloodiest massacres. Since then, during the second half of the second decade of the 21st century, during a small period, the Rajapaksa regime was not in power in that sense. But throughout the 2 decades of the 21st century, this Rajapaksa regime was holding the reins of Sri Lankan state or Sri Lankan government. Now in the 21st century, following the Tamil question, that is Tamil national question, massacre, etc., we know that internationally also the situation was fast changing. In 2008, there was a world economic crisis, probably the so-called subprime crisis, based on which neoliberalism entered a new phase. A new phase in the sense that a new path all over the world came into view, especially in countries like India, Myanmar, and Sri Lanka. The regime became more fascistic. For example, in India, we know Hindutva fascism, Hindutva ideology, doctrine ideology was the ideological basis of the. In Burma, in Myanmar, it was the Buddhist idea or ideology, Buddhist religion. In Sri Lanka also the Buddhist religion was used, and the Sinhala majoritarian politics was superimposed on the entire Sri Lankan population. And with the backing of Sinhala majority, that majoritarian ideology, the Rajapaksa regime was superimposing a fascistic type of regime there. And in the meanwhile, many global developments have been there. We know that following the global crisis of the late part of the first decade of the 21st century, this state became more repressive. Global crisis of capitalism intensified. Multinational companies were given more and more liberalized regime in almost all countries where the ruling regimes were integrated with international capital. Sri Lanka was a typical example, because we know historically, even during the so-called golden days of welfare capitalism, Sri Lanka was an export-oriented country. That is, it was exporting most of its agricultural primary products, and it was importing most of its necessary items other than primary. Most of its other items, for example, consumption goods were imported from foreign countries. and it was depending on foreign capital for development, and it was for global markets for its consumption, and for development it was also depending on foreign capital. Under the Rajapaksa regime, when the regime became too fascistic, the all democratic rights of the people were slowly taken away, and in the process what is called, it was a family. Their regime was controlled by a family. The president, the prime minister, the military general, and the entire cabinet, the whole administration, all came under a family, more or less under a family. And so the alliance with capital, with the capital's alliance with this family, that is international capital's alliance, unholy relationship this family with this family, that determined what is called the economic policies there. So policy decisions are formed by the Sri Lanka regime and by the unholy alliance with the Sri Lanka regime and on the one hand, and the international capitalists and the crony capitalists on the other. So what happened, we know, the capitalists there, for tax regimes were liberalized, all regulations on capital were taken away. In the name of development, capital was given, repatriation was allowed, all restrictions on and in accordance with that, there was more and more curtailment of democratic rights. This was the situation. And what happened today, is the outcome of a series of one by one. For example, in 2019, there took place what is called the Easter bombing. The Easter bombing means the bombing of churches led by so-called, we don't know the mastermind behind this bombing, where probably other forces also, we don't know. It's put on the head of Islamic actually international forces. Even today, no concrete information has come. Who so followed by that, there took place the pandemic case, and because of pandemic, the situation became more and followed by pandemic. We are experiencing the Sri Lankan economy. If we compare the Sri Lankan economy with other economies, one important point is the economy, which is oriented to tourism mainly. It's mainly from tourism. For example, all the infrastructure were oriented to tourism sector. That means development of infrastructure, transportation, and all activities were needed for increasing tourism. Because of the domestic problem and because of Ukraine, and only one after another, prominent developments in now domestic and international participation, and whatever infrastructure development like more research. So it was difficult for the regime to repay the capital that was owed, and all its export earnings were collapsed because of domestic policies also. Tourism was going down, earnings were going down, and on the other, there was a Turlakian invoked by the Rajapaksa. One was the abolition of chemical fertilizers. Chemical fertilizers were abolished at one time. Now And this led to actually at an alarming rate. Agriculture production actually collapsed. And it was in the name of propagating organic fertilizer. The backing of China also was there in this, and that was also a factor to be taken into consideration. Similarly, global tax rates were cut short. Corporate taxes were reduced to the bare minimum. So government tax savings went down and agriculture collapsed. So earnings from export earnings collapsed because agriculture products were typically exported. The requirement, the food grain, essential food grain for domestic requirements could not be produced. So all these accumulated together. And because of the global crisis, prices of petroleum, prices of
Okay. There is another dimension to the Sri Lankan question. That is, Sri Lanka was actually depending on not only on tourism earnings. One of its, as I already mentioned, one of its main earnings was from tourism. Along with that, Sri Lankan expatriates. Many Sri Lankan expatriates were regularly sending funds to Sri Lanka, deposits, which were also a source of income for the regime or for the economy. That source also became reduced because of these national and international developments. And because of the, as I have already said, because of COVID, because of the this pandemic question, I mean, because of these internal problems, because of the Ukraine crisis, and all these because of these prices of petroleum going up, as I have already said, export foreign exchange crisis became too serious, and foreign debt, international debt of Sri Lanka economy skyrocketed. There it became very high. It cannot be repaid in such a way that normal methods of repayment of this debt became impossible for the Sri Lankan regime. Here we have to examine the details, some details connected with the Sri Lanka's debt position. So Sri Lanka is actually getting loans from various sources, from European imperialist sources, IMF and World Bank, as usual, Asian Development Bank. These are actually institutions controlled by Western imperialist powers. Apart from that, Western imperialist capitalists, I mean, MNCs have also their role in Sri Lanka. That is one aspect. That is Sri Lanka's indebtedness to these countries, these sources, and this is part of a neo-colonial transformation, because we know after the Second World War, U.S. imperialism emerged with these institutions to have its neo-colonial control. So multinational companies, Bretton Woods system, then WTO, and all these have their respective role in creating the crisis in Sri Lanka. But a new development of importance is the Chinese role. We know that after the crisis of 2008, world crisis, China, which has already become a transformed, which adopted the capitalist path after Mao's death. From that position, from a capitalist country, China slowly transformed into an imperialist power. Not only an ordinary level, but catching up with the US imperialism. And in many respects, China even surpassed US imperialism, probably except in military. In terms of actual investment, except in military, in almost all modern technologies, China has an advantage over US imperialism today. But apart from that, quite reminiscent of the Marshall Plan of the early post-war years, when US imperialism started its neo-colonial offensive through the Marshall Plan. That means reconstructing the post-war Europe. In the same way, China has evolved a Belt and Road program, BRI, Belt and Road program of China, which is almost several times bigger than, even according to the current dollar exchange rate, according to that is several times higher than the Marshall Plan, larger than the Marshall Plan. That is $1 trillion. 1 trillion is 1,000 billion, you know. So $1,000 billion capital export program, the biggest in history. So China is now through this BRI program is expanding not only throughout Asia, but is expanding to Africa, even even crossing Europe. It is now has reached Latin America also. Now Africa, China has become the biggest capital investor, the biggest capital exporter to Africa, China, and it is now in the process of replacing US imperialism in Latin America also. So in that process, Sri Lanka became that means in this Belt and Road program, Sri Lanka is a destination of this BRI program. And a difference between the Western capital investment and Chinese investment. For example, when you examine the Western notions or Western methods of capital investment, that we know for the last 200 years, the Anglo-Saxon model, we know how the West has developed its model of capital export, investment, etc. But China has evolved a different method. Chinese investment and Chinese capital export is not on the same pattern as that of the Western powers. China closely associated with the Rajapaksa regime, and many Chinese companies, these Chinese companies are closely integrated with the bureaucratic capitalist state power of China. That is the state power, the Chinese regime, which is what is called an embodiment of bureaucratic capitalism. It is most powerful state, and the integration of the state with capital is to be studied in a detailed way. How surplus value is extracted in China and abroad by Chinese capital is a thing that has to be studied in a detailed manner. So China's investment in Sri Lanka, not only in Sri Lanka, in any other country, in Iran, if you examine, or in Djibouti in Africa, you examine, or in Sudan, you examine, it is different from the way in which Western powers are exporting capital. So in Sri Lanka, wherever China, according to estimates, economists or many researchers have pointed out that only 10% of total foreign investment is coming from China. But the power of that 10% total investment, its capacity, its capability to influence Chinese Sri Lankan policies, and its capacity to influence Sri Lankan domestic regime and domestic situation is more powerful, is more capable when compared with other investment. Because whatever investment this China is making, this investment is directly going into the heart of the very Sri Lankan economy. That means only for building up the most strategic infrastructure sectors, in port development, in road development, and in other developments which are associated with Chinese interests. That means Chinese expansion, Chinese interest of establishing its global hegemony, its neo-colonial hegemony on the world. So it is in that way this Chinese capital export is designed. So as is, and one condition, unlike other countries, investment, China's capital investment has many ties. It's tied. Tied in the sense that the conditionalities are not obvious. Many opacity, many secret understanding with the regimes are there. As a result, now it is reported that because of the debt repayment problem, that is, as Sri Lanka has become an indebted to many sources. It cannot repay its debt to Western powers, IMF, World Bank, or to Western countries. In the same way, it cannot repay its loans to China also. But what has happened is that whatever investment is China has there, all those areas, all those investment destinations are now directly under Chinese control. For example, the ports, it is reported that the Hambantota port is 99 years now it will go under the control of China. This is the way in which China is controlled. So Chinese, no such understanding or no such agreement is with other powers. So China's agreement with Sri Lanka is such that China is directly going to hold many strategic centers of the Sri Lankan economy as a result of this crisis. This is a difference that we have to examine, and whatever investment is there, it will have its political ramifications, which is several fold powerful than that of the Western powers. This is to be understood in a detailed way. I am not going into those details. But coming to the present question, now it has become clear that if the people now cutting across all divisions, all these these ideological political difference or religious difference, whatever identity politics that imperialism international sources have created, cutting across all that, now people are united. The people of Sri Lanka have united against their common enemy, that is the Rajapaksa regime, and now it is being thrown away. Now the military, the police, nothing, nowhere is capable to prevent the rising tide of people's upsurge, people's simmering discontent. Nobody can resist it, nobody can challenge it. Now the people has come forward, they have overthrown the regime, the whole ruling family is now thrown away, and now they are now seeking refugees, asylum. They are now become refugees in foreign countries. Rajapaksa is now moving from one country to another. It is reported. We don't know the details. And sometimes we don't know which regimes will come for his help, for the service he had done to international capital. We don't know. So this is the most corrupt, because of this crony capital, because of the loss of motion of capital today. Chinese, this Sri Lankan regime is become the most corrupt, the most anti-people, the most fascistic. So it is in that way that this is based on the loss of capitalism, loss of finance capital in the neo-colonial period, in the neoliberal period. So it is the outcome of a neo-fascist regime that when people, without in the ultimate sense, if there is no other option, then people will come forward. This is very clear. But the problem here again comes that there is the force, a force capable of, a political force, a political alternative capable of leading these people's struggles to a political alternative.
Social change.
Political change. That means it not a political alternative capable of overcoming this problem. A political alternative means a development perspective, a paradigm. Which is the alternative? Such a leadership having that perspective, capable of challenging international capital and its domestic agents, putting people's interests at the center. Such a force is not to come forward in a clear-cut form. That is a problem. Many forces are. Many revolutionary forces are involved in it, because we also know that many revolutionary forces are involved in this struggle. Many people's forces are there. And the people have united, cutting across all their divisions, all the superimposed divisions, people have united. But leading them to struggle and establishing people's political power and transforming power to the people, that a political alternative, a political leadership, a revolutionary leadership capable of taking that and challenging imperialism, challenging international capital and its local agents, its local cronies. That force is set to come forward. In the absence of that, as we have seen in Arab Spring, in other revolutions, other people's upsurges, in the absence of a political leadership, a revolutionary leadership, whatever people's initiative upsurge is there, the ruling classes will manage to resolve it, and they again will, at one ruling class, one section may go out, another section may come. So that we have to understand. So the alternative before us, the people, is that the immediate task is that we have to develop people, whether in Sri Lanka or in our country, we have to develop a political alternative. A revolutionary political leadership should come into the leadership of these struggles and to establish a people's state, a democratic state, capable of establishing a regime which will look after the people's interest against the interest of the enemies. Sri Lanka has enough resources for development. It has enough land, only 22 million people, Sri Lanka. It has enough land, it has enough resources, it has enough geographically, climatically. Sri Lanka is very suitable for habitat, people's habitat, in the very the inhabitation, very advantage, many so many advantages are there. So to take use of all these things, what is required is a political leadership, and we hope that the people of Sri Lanka will, from their experience, will become mature enough to move in that direction. This is what I have to say on this question. When we speak about the socialism, many democratic tasks are to be fulfilled. For example, Sri Lanka is still under the control of international imperialism. Imperialism has substantial role there. So when you are going for, when a country is fighting for socialism, according to theory, it implies that they are fighting for a socialist society against the capitalist regime there. But here what is there? The enemy is outside. The enemy is imperialism. Now, the main enemy of, like the case of China, which is keeping the red flag higher. So such international enemies and the local ruling classes are become part of them. They are integrated. So now this is national liberation. Sri Lanka's immediate task is a national liberation. So national liberation is a democratic task. That is a point. So we move, when for moving towards socialism, the conditions are still lacking. So that conditions can be created only by overthrowing imperialism, and there are many local reactionary, pre-capitalist forces are there. And these questions are to be, that we have to examine with respect to the Sri Lankan society. What are the social relations there? Anyway, Sri Lanka is not at, in my understanding, Sri Lanka is not at ripe enough to move towards a socialist revolution. Many democratic tasks are to be fulfilled, and therefore we are saying that to move towards socialism, of course our aim is to move towards socialism, but that socialism can be established first by overthrowing the forces which are allying with imperialism. And for that there are not only bourgeois forces, there may be many pre-capitalists, for example, these many reactionary ideologies, forces which are propping up all our this regime as integrated with that. So against them, what we need is a democratic revolution is needed. So we have to take those aspects also into consideration. So taking them into consideration, my opinion is that there is no water compartment between socialism and democratic revolution. No water compartment. We'll be moving from democratic revolution to socialism. But all these things are wishful thinking if a force, a revolutionary force capable of taking up this task is not there. That is the immediate task. Instead of going to debate on whether socialism or democratic revolution, the immediate task is a leadership capable of concretely analyzing the situation and putting a task based on that. That is the requirement.
But to understand there are people uprising there,
Yes.
but not able to political changes. This kind of situation, how we analyze in depth.
That is related to the not a Sri Lankan question. It is a global situation today. That internationally the left, we know only the left capable of only a Marxist perspective, a Marxist political alternative capable of understanding the laws of motion of capital, because capital is dominating. So capital can be overthrown only by the working class and the oppressed united. That is the only option. So their idea of Marxism, Leninism is the ideology of the working class and the oppressed. So the problem today is that internationally the left is weak, and this weakness of the left arises from political, ideological and organizational questions. Not only just Sri Lankan question. It's a question that we are confronting everywhere. In India also we are confronting the same problem. Situation is very right.
Tunisia also.
Everywhere, everywhere. In Africa, in every continent. The situation is very ripe for social transformation. Objective situation is there. But subjective factors means the revolutionary forces. The ideological, political leadership is lacking. And main problem is the understanding of capitalism, understanding of imperialism, the understanding of how capital works, how finance capital operates, what is the essence of corporate capital today, and how it can be overcome, the character of the state, character of the regime, the contradictions within
The
society.
importance of organizations.
Yes, and all these are possible, comrade. Important of organization, you can build organization comes from correct political ideological understanding. Because diagnosis, if you are capable of making a treatment, a correct position, then the diagnosis also should be there. The problem here is that regarding the understanding of the situation, regarding the analysis of global and domestic situation, the left is still weak. That is one point. And because of this, the left is incapable to take leadership. So only if coming to the leadership of the struggles, this organization can be built up. And for coming to the leadership of the struggle, in namesake left in it is no use. If they have to be capable, so building up an organization, they should have equipped with an ideology. So that ideological backwardness is there. And if ideology is there, then it should be the next is the determining factor will be organization. So organization build up is necessary, and we have to stereotyped examples, moving away from stereotyped textbook copies of what happened in the past. We have to make objective evaluation today, what type of organizational initiatives are required, and we have to adjust, we have to develop the theory. We have to develop Marxism according to the concrete situation, and in accordance with that, organization also will be developed, and therefore it is a challenge before the revolutionary forces all over the world. Sri Lanka, in India, in Asia, everywhere, the revolutionary forces are now facing many challenges. And the situation is more complex. Situation is more complex, but the left is weak. Left, I mean the revolutionary left is weak. So this question can be resolved only through concerted effort, concerted theoretical and practical effort. Ideological, political, organizational initiative is needed. This is what is to be understood.
So,
Okay.
you wish to the what you say to the Sri Lanka peoples.
Our friends are there in Sri Lanka. We have with our friends are having, we are having contacts and communication. Our revolutionary friends are there. They are giving us details what is going on. That they are also involved in this struggle. So we have they will, every country's task is done by their own people. The Sri Lankan liberation, the liberation of the Sri Lankan people is the task of the Sri Lanka. Their people, they have to develop it.
Yeah.
We can only, we will
Wish, we
declare our
will
solidarity.
wish.
Our revolutionary solidarity with the fighting people of Sri Lanka. Red salute.
Thank you, thank you.